Hey there, crewmates. Gabe from Nexus Core here with my last video covering my different deck lists for the deck limited battle format that we will be experiencing with the event in the next couple weeks. Going on with the last starter deck in line is Kaido for start deck 4 with the purple deck. And without further ado, let us just get along into the deck list. So first off in the character lineup, we're running 4 copies of Black Maria, who is a 2/2 blocker with counter 1000. This is quite easy. It is the lowest to the ground blocker available. It's very cheap to play. Not the 1/1 that we've come to expect, and frankly, I think the deck would have preferred that just because you don't care about Black Maria's power, you just care about the fact that she is a cheap-to-play blocker. However, the fact that she does come with the counter 1000 does definitely help if you really just need that last-minute power bonus during your opponent's attack and you don't have the time to get her out to block. So, fantastic, easy 4 of it's a low to the ground blocker. Next, we are upping from the 2 you get. We are running 4 copies of Who's Who, a 3/3, whose effect is on play, Don -1 to KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 3 or less, and his trigger is that you can play this card. This is easily a 4 of. It's how you get rid of most of the blockers in the format. It's how you get rid of a lot of cards that you want to deal with to begin with. He can take care of, for example, a 3-cost vanilla that your opponent might be playing with. There's just a lot of cards that this format you are going to want to hit, and the fact that he works on a trigger means there is that chance that you could use him defensively before your opponent even attacks with that 3-cost character. So easy 4 of. Next, we are running 4 copies of Jack, who is a 3/4 with counter 1000, whose effect is on play. You can discard 1 to add a card from your Dawn deck to your cost area as active. So it's a way of accelerating your Dawn if you have, say, a hand stacked with a lot of high cost cards that you don't think you're going to anywhere get the chance to play all of them, or you just really need that Dawn acceleration. It's a very easy way of getting it out there, and it's another way of getting that high number that you are absolutely going to want with a deck like this. And our last cost 3, we are running 4 copies of Sasaki, who is a 3/4 with counter 1000, whose effect is on play, Dawn -1. You can draw a card. So it is card advantage, which this deck definitely would like access to. It does not have a thing like Bonnie where you can check the top 5 for a card, and it doesn't have a card like Kuma where you can check the top 3 and at least know what you're going to be drawing into. So doing whatever you can to get that raw advantage is very good, and the fact that it's only Dawn 1 is not that big of a deal, especially with cards like Jack and Onigashima that we're going to get into. So having it cost -1 really doesn't matter, especially if you're in the late game when you are already at 10 Dawn and you're going to be getting 2 no matter what. So in those phases it really doesn't matter, and the fact that he has counter 1000 makes him all the better, and only 1 Dawn means that he is able to at least hit your opponent's leader, which is very nice. So definitely worth running. And next, onto our cost 4s, we are running 4 copies of Ulti, who is a 4/5 with counter 2000, whose effect is on play, go Dawn -1, play a page 1 with a cost of 4 or less from your hand, and because they go together, page 1 is your vanilla, so 4/6 with counter 1000. So part of why we're running these is that really, it's the counter value. Page 1 being a vanilla in the limited deck battle meta is fine, and hitting for 6,000 is good, and Ulti having counter 2,000 is very good. This is the only counter 2,000 in the deck. You really don't, in my opinion, play them for the effects. However, that is not to undermine the effects. If you are able to use Ulti in page 1, you can definitely get ahead, because that is just cheating out a 4-cost beater and getting 2 cards that can hit your opponent's leader for the cost of 1, which is very good. I bring it up to say that it is just unlikely for it to happen, because the deck does not have many consistency cards like Bonnie, where you can guarantee what you're drawing, you really hope that you either blind draw it or your effect draws get there. So it's not going to be happening all that much, but the fact that they both come with counters and decent bodies either way still definitely makes it worth running. It's just I am not super in love with the effect. It does not come off a whole lot in my own personal experience with purple. Next, going on to our bigger cards with our only cost 5, we are very obviously running 4 copies of Queen, who is a 5/6 with counter 1000 and blocker, so a fantastic stat line for him. And his effect is on play. You can go Dawn -1 to draw 2 and discard 1, which is fantastic. It is more card advantage. For the same cost of Sasaki, you get 2 cards, and while you have to discard 1, if there's a card in your hand that you just hate, you can get rid of it and potentially get 2 good ones. And you get a blocker alongside it and a good attacker if you really want to attack with Queen. So all in all, a phenomenal card. Easy 4 of. Next, we are running 4 copies of King, who is a 6/7, whose effect is on play, go Dawn -1 to KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost 4 or less. We are running it at 4 mostly because the deck really wants its big cards to hit, and the fact that he is only Dawn -1 means that if you have 2 Kings in hand, while you can't play 2 in the same turn, because it's only Dawn -1, you'll get 2 back on your following turn, so you can play King, and then on the next turn play King and have 2 7,000 beaters. So running it at 4, his effect is fine and you're going to be using it when you can, but it really is just another card with a good stat line that you want, because this deck really just wants to beat face, and hitting for 7,000 like that is quite important. And rounding out our characters, we are also running 4 copies of Kaido for a similar reason, who is a 9/10 on play, go Dawn -5, so a heavy cost. And if you do, you can KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less, then Kaido gets Rush. So the fact that he does cost 9 and makes you go Dawn -1 is a steep investment, but if without bad reason. This is a very powerful effect. Putting Rush on a 10k body is great enough, and the fact that you can kill most things in the format is phenomenal. This is a 4 of because you absolutely want to see it, and if you see it in that much of excess, there are cards like Queen and Jack that can discard to at least turn it into something, because you're probably not going to end up using 3 Kaidos, but wanting to ensure that you can use them is very important, which makes this an easy 4 of. So this definitely needs to be played. This is your all-star, and its effect is so good, you are kind of unlikely to wind up using your leader's effect, just because you kind of want to prioritize the rush and the KO with Kaido. So fantastic card, easily the centerpiece. Now, moving into the non-characters. First, for the first in all of this little series that I've been doing, we actually are now running a stage card with Onigashima. It is a cost 3 stage. During the main phase, you can rest it. If your leader is an Animal Kingdom pirate, which it is, you can add one of your Dawn cards to your cost area as rested. So it is free every turn mana acceleration, which, if you could tell by both the costs of these cards in terms of how much you need to play them and the Dawn minusing they do, that is incredibly important. You do not want to leave home without 4 of these. And again, it's another not decent discard target, because you rarely, if ever, go into 2. So if you end up seeing that second one, you know what you're discarding off of Queen. So this is such an important card. Even though it comes in rested, effectively getting 3 Dawn every turn is so pivotal for what this deck ultimately wants to do, and getting your big cards out as soon as possible, which is really the cornerstone of this deck. And lastly, we are going on to our event cards. The first obvious one, we are running 4 copies of Blast Breath, which is cost 1 and Dawn -1 to give your leader or character 4,000 power. So it is a 1 Dawn card that can give a character 4,000, which, while you have to go Dawn -1, the fact that you only need to pay 1 to begin with to get 4,000 is very good. And provided you have Onigashima, going -1 isn't that big of a deal. And because your main deck Kaido is cost 9, this costing 1 means you can play main deck Kaido, and provided you have that 10th Dawn, still have Blast Breath be workable to protect you. So it is such a good protective card. It's also the only protective counter, but it really is the only event protector you need in this format, because we have a decent amount of blockers with 4 Queen, 4 Black Maria, as well as most of the cards in our deck come with some form of counter. So having 4,000 on a Dawn -1 is just so good, so easy for us. Next, we are also running 4 copies of Brachio Bomber, who costs 6, and its effect is during the main phase. You can KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less, then add 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck to your cost area as active, and trigger, you can just add 1 Dawn card from your deck to your cost area. So this is quite good. It is a card I think that will be cut, at the very least be reduced, once we start getting more cards from Romance Dawn. However, I think it's very good for this format because it is another way of KOing cards, and the fact that it can hit 6 or less despite costing 6 is still very good, and it also comes with its own form of mana acceleration, which is equally important. Being able to, if you look at this deck, the only cards that can KO besides Brachio Bomber are Kaido, who costs 9 and goes -5, King, who costs 6 also, and Who's Who while it costs 3, both Who's Who and King can only kill a 3 or 4 or less respectively. Brachio Bomber being able to hit at cost 6 is very important. There are quite a few cards in that 6 or lower range, including, for example, Queen in the Mirror Match, Basil Hawkins, and the 5-cost Luffy, and even the Rush Luffy if you just want to get rid of a card that has 7,000. So being able to hit a card and mana accelerate with it is very important. And lastly, to finish off the deck, we are running 2 copies of All-Star Calamities, who is a costs 4. During your main phase, you can draw 1, then you can add 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck to your cost area as active, and trigger activate its main effect. We're running it at 2, mostly because of that cost tag, costing 4. While it is a solid effect that kind of needed to cost 4, it's a bit heavy, and the turn you use it, you're not going to be playing Kaido. It's not very likely you're going to be playing King or Queen. You can, it's just that your entire turn will be the Calamity and King or Queen. So the fact that it costs so much is definitely a thing to consider, but the fact that it's early game acceleration, and if you don't have any great cards in your hand, being able to draw a card for added consistency is nice, but there is a reason that this card is slowly being cut out as we get more of the Romance Dawn cards. So that is going to wrap it up for the last installment of my deck-limited battle deck profiles. Let me know down below what you think of this deck profile, what changes you would make, and let me know what deck you are planning on entering the deck-limited battle format with, and hopefully I'll get to see you all in that tournament. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.